and thanks for stopping by today. Today I want to take a break from doing the reaction videos and the music theory stuff, and just kind of take a minute to talk about some of my favorite music. Now, in the last Taylor Swift video I did, I mentioned that I've actively avoided pop music for the last 25 years. That is because about 25 years ago, the pop music coming out at the time was pretty bad in my opinion. Also, I was really wanting to take a deeper dive into music history and get to know all these different genres, subgenres, and I was also really getting into improvisational music at that point. So I was listening to a ton of jazz, a lot of jam band music, 60s and 70s rock, funk, but now I'm more into, I listen to all that stuff quite a bit still. I've gotten into, alternative. I'm a kid of the 90s and 80s, so I love alternative music. But I'm getting into the modern day alternative music and some of the psych rock, and I'm kind of revisiting stuff from the past too, like Sonic Youth and the Pixies and all that stuff. But I wanted to take a moment and I want to talk about my top 10 favorite studio albums from the past 25 years, just to give you a little bit of insight out there as to what I'm actually listening to. Now, I listened to a ton of music prior to 2002, and I really dig into people's entire song catalogs, and I like to listen to things in chronological order. I also like to listen to entire studio albums. People who create albums that you hit play, and it runs all the way to the end, and it's pretty much a masterpiece all the way through. That's what I think these albums are today. So, with that, let's go ahead and get into this list. Now, this is in no particular order. I had a very difficult time trying to rank these things, so I'm just putting these in chronological order for now. Number 1 on the list comes from the year 2000, and this is Kid A by Radiohead. I don't even know what I can really say about this album. It is an absolute masterpiece. OK Computer is possibly my favorite Radiohead album, although it's very difficult to pick. I love Radiohead. These guys are so creative. They have just the most amazing songwriting style, riffs, production value, and overall creativity of really any band. That's a pretty bold statement, but these guys are unbelievable. If you haven't listened to much Radiohead, do yourself a favor and check out the Kid A album. All right, next on the list, another one of my favorite bands. I have a lot of favorite bands. Medeski, Martin and Wood. If you've never heard of Medeski, Martin and Wood, they're a jazz trio from New York, and they do really have this unique, funky style to them. These guys are a three-piece, and they are just all virtuosos on their instrument. They all do unbelievably unique things on their instrument. You got Billy Martin on drums, one of my favorite drummers of all time. John Medeski on keyboard, and he's just got an entire playground of keys to play on when they perform. And Chris Wood on bass, who switches between upright and electric bass. This is one of the most unique bands you are ever going to hear in your life. So if you haven't checked it out before, check out the album Uninvisible by Medeski, Martin and Wood. This one is a gem. Next one on the list, coming out from 2002. Queens of the Stone Age, Songs for the Deaf. I just really don't even know what else I can say about this album that hasn't already been said. They pulled in Dave Grohl to play drums on this album, and this album is just, I want to say littered, but that might not be the proper term, but it is riffville. There are riffs all over this album that just hit so hard. Josh Homme is just a master of writing riffs and just has this really unique, haunting kind of songwriting style that, I really don't hear a whole lot of people do the style of Queens of the Stone Age. Songs for the Deaf is just an absolute banger of an album. Check it out if you haven't heard it before. Another album you may not have heard of before is called Shades of Blue by Madlib. Madlib is a very unique producer and musician. He's produced tons of people and has a very, very unique style with all the beats and drums and stuff that he does. He's just great at crafting together samples. And this album, Shades of Blue, he got access to the Blue Note jazz catalog. And Blue Note, if you don't know, is pretty much the greatest jazz label on earth and has existed for a long time. This album is just so cool and unique. Check out Shades of Blue by Madlib if you haven't heard that one. So Shades of Blue was released in 2003. Also released in 2003 is the album Quebec by the band Ween. If you haven't heard of the band Ween before, they do some of the weirdest music that you're likely to hear. But this one is, even though there's some weird songs on it, there's just unbelievable songs on this album. I put this album on, let it roll the entire way through. Quebec by Ween, that one's a good one. Check it out if you haven't heard it before. Moving on to 2007, the band Wilco released an album called Sky Blue Sky. And I mean, the craftsmanship to this album is just amazing. It is truly one of those albums that you hit play, listen to it all the way to the end. Just some of the most beautiful songwriting and layers and textures and arrangements. Sky Blue Sky by Wilco was the first time I heard that album. It just blew my mind. If you've not listened to Wilco before, check it out. Their lead singer Jeff Tweedy also kind of has a very unique songwriting style, and his vocals are very unique too. But yeah, Sky Blue Sky by Wilco. Please do yourself a favor and go check out this album. It is a masterpiece. All right, now we're getting into a little more of my favorite territory, funk. In 2012, probably one of my favorite, well, my favorite modern funk band that I just saw a couple weeks ago here in town, Lettuce, released the album Fly. And this is kind of a transitional album for them. Definitely moving into more of the, jam band territory with this one. But my goodness, the level of groove on this album is hard to match. Fly by Lettuce. If you're wanting to get into modern funk, check that album out. Fly is awesome. And Lettuce is awesome. Check out their other stuff too if you haven't heard of them before. If you're a drummer, Adam Deitch is another one of my favorite drummers of all time. And I've seen him with different bands 3 times. And I would see Adam Deitch perform every day for the rest of my life if I could. The guy is just so good. Every one of these guys are good. They met at Berklee School of Jazz, from what I understand. And the horn section's great, the keys are great, the bass is great, the guitar is great. I mean, Lettuce. Please check them out. Also in 2012, Dr. John. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. John, but more people know his stuff from the 70s. He's a New Orleans artist and an absolute goat and legend. I got to see him live a couple years before he passed away, and I ended up getting VIP tickets and was like very, very close to where Dr. John was, and I was just total fanboy. But in 2012, I actually left this other band off the list, and I kind of thought about adding something of theirs on there, the Black Keys. In 2012, Dan Auerbach from the Black Keys produced an album for Dr. John, Lockdown, and this is probably Dr. John's most unique album. And I mean, it is so hip, and it is so modern sounding, and you don't expect that from. He's basically a retiree when he recorded this, of retirement age. Man, Lockdown by Dr. John. Talk about an awesome album. If you haven't heard it, check it out. All right, and then we're moving on to 2014. This album, the first time I heard it, the first time I heard one of the songs off this album was on a commercial, and I Shazammed it to find out who it was. And then I listened to the rest of the album, and I was like, man, this album is just a masterpiece. And it's Bahamas is Zafi by Bahamas. So Bahamas is pretty much one dude. He goes by the name Bahamas. I would butcher his name if I tried to pronounce it. But yeah, this album is it's such a well-written album from front to back. And it's also a great album if you're just driving around on a kind of a gloomy fall day with mist and the leaves changing. I just think this album is so good. It's one of my favorites to listen to. I don't know why I listen to it in fall specifically, but now's the time to do it. So if you haven't heard Bahamas is Zafi, the album, put it in and check it out. And last on the list comes in at 2017. And yeah, I absolutely do not know what more I can say about this band. If you had never heard of them before, they're from Australia. They formed in 2010, 2011, something like that. And since then, they've released 26 or 27 studio albums. It's unbelievable. Yes, you heard me right. You can go and listen to them. King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. This is one of my favorite modern bands. I mean, I don't know how this group of people can be so creative. And the thing is about their music, they're just not like pumping out crap, you know. Every one of their albums sounds totally different from one another, and they just know how to do it, and these guys have fun doing it. So the only thing, I don't think I've heard them do any country music, but other than that, they've done some kind of like roots rock, bluesy folk stuff. But yeah, I would put them definitely in the psych rock category. But yeah, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, 2017, they released an album called Flying Microtonal Banana. And I know that's a funny album name, and so is the band name. But this album, they brought in new guitars that have different fretboards on them. I mean, they have microtones on the fretboards, so they aren't spaced out like this. You know, you get like a wider space and then smaller sets of frets, and then wider frets, and then smaller frets and wider frets. And because of that, this album just has an unmatched, unique sound for, you know, I guess it's not technically Western music, but it is. That in itself kind of blows my mind. But yeah, if you've not heard King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, please go out and check out this band. They're one of the best bands out there right now. And I'd start off with Flying Microtonal Banana and work your way around that. That album is just so unique. It sounds so cool. And yeah, I mean, there's just song after song after song. It's just one of the most creative things I've ever heard. So with that, I'm going to wrap this up here. But yeah, those are my top 10 favorite studio albums from the last 25 years. Now, I'm not saying those are the only ones I've listened to. There are a lot more albums that I had to exclude off this list, and I have a lot more lists that I want to go through. But if you need some inspiration or some new music to check out, please go down this list and check out some of these albums and some of the bands that I mentioned. Radiohead, Medeski, Martin and Wood, Queens of the Stone Age, Madlib, Wilco, Ween, Lettuce, Bahamas, Dr. John, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. It's all over the map stylistically, and some of my favorite stuff to listen to. If you want to talk about any of these albums, please drop a comment below and maybe mention, you know, some of your favorite albums from the past 25 years, studio albums specifically. And if one of the albums from one of these bands that I selected that wasn't on the list that you like better, I'd love to hear your input. So yeah, if you like this video, please give it a like, and I will see you next time, friends.